Introduce my friend of 30 or 40 years, Ross Perot.
Somebody adjust this for me? It's an honor to be with all of you, and I can't tell you how much it means to me to be with all the veterans that are here today. On October the 22nd, 2013, America lost one of its greatest heroes, and I lost a very dear friend, General Robbie Reisner. There he is, climbing onto a fighter plane. That's a big painting in my office. We'd like to have it out here, but it's dipping. I don't want to get it damaged. Robbie was a humble man and a beloved leader. He also said that he loved of God and country was what brought him through 7.5 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. When the POWs came home from Vietnam, time and again I would hear someone say, if it hadn't been for Robbie Reisner, I wouldn't have made it. I'll tell you a little more about that later. Robbie was an Oklahoma cowboy, was one of the nation's most decorated fighter pilots. He served in 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. The painting, I've already just shown you. In 1957, he was chosen by the Air Force to this is in Korea, to retrace Charles Lindbergh's, excuse me, I'm not to Korea, the Charles Lindbergh route on a jet across the Atlantic to commemorate Lindbergh's transatlantic flight on that same route. He set the new record, to nobody's surprise. He was an ace in Korea. He fought the last personal air-to-air duel that will probably be fought. He met China's top ace in the air over Korea, arranged by General MacArthur and the Chinese. Robbie decided in the middle of the battle to fight his opponent defensively because he had more fuel than the Chinese ace. As the Chinese ace had to turn around and go back over the North Yalu River, Robbie decided that instead of just zapping him there, he would go all the way into his base in China and shoot him down in front of his own troops. And that is exactly what he did. And that would also be the ultimate loss of face for China's top ace. Well, that's Robbie's warrior spirit right there. And that is exactly what he did. As he shot the Chinese ace down over his runway, he looked down and there were 19 MiGs on the ground. He did a giant 360, came back and got 14 in one pass. I've always asked him how he missed 5 on the ground. But you know that's a joke. Later, Robbie went to Vietnam. Time magazine ran his picture on the cover, America's top ace in Vietnam. Vietnamese knew exactly what they had after he, in 1965, was shot down by a ground-to-air missile, not a pilot. It's very important to Robbie that you understand. It's a missile that got him, not a pilot, during a mission to destroy the missile sites. The North Vietnamese took him prisoner. They knew exactly who they had because of the Time magazine cover story. He was held a prisoner for over 7 years in the Hanoi Hilton prison. 4 years in solitary confinement, total darkness, in a big box, 140 degrees in the box in the daytime. Now, how many people could put up with that? Well, Robbie did. He never bent, he never broke. Instead, he inspired hundreds of fellow prisoners to stay alive by tapping the box with a tap code. Could you give me my thing here to keep my papers clear? But he was a great leader even though he was in the box. Now, how would you like to try to make an inspirational speech like that? Tap code. Robbie did it. Then when you can't go to church, you will take every risk, including risking your life, to practice your beliefs. These beliefs kept Robbie alive. As the senior officer of the camp, Robbie organized a church service even though he knew he would be punished. the POWs said they didn't have any hymnals. Robbie said, just write them out on paper. The only paper they had was toilet paper, and they wrote their hymns on toilet paper. They were all singing "Onward Christian Soldiers," and the Vietnamese stormed in, grabbed Robbie and two other leaders, and dragged them back into the box. The 40 POWs that were there with them stood proudly to honor Robbie and their leaders, and sang a strictly forbidden song, the Star Spangled Banner, to show their support. Years later, when Robbie came home, I said, "Robbie, what was going on in your mind as they dragged you back into the box?" He looked at me and his eyes were twinkling. He said, "Perot, with those guys singing the Star Spangled Banner, I was 9 feet tall. I could have gone bear hunting with a stick." Today at the U.S. Air Force Academy, there is a 9-foot tall bronze statue of Robbie Reisner with a stick at the base, and believe me, every cadet knows what that's all about. And when they decide to have their leadership program named in honor of an Air Force person, it's the Reisner Leadership Program, where all of the Air Force Academy cadets are being taught leadership. My son later went into the Air Force and earned his Air Force pilot wings. And guess what? Robbie was at his ceremony and pinned his wings directly onto my son. Can you imagine what that meant to Ross? Recently now, Ross's son received his Air Force wings. General Reisner was in the last weeks of his life. He could not be at the ceremony, but he directed my son to pin his wings on his son. So Ross did that, and I can't tell you what that meant to both Ross and his son, and thanks to General Reisner. I would like to thank General Reisner's wife, Dot. She was a great lady and is still a great lady. And through all the years after Robbie's return, when he was in poor health, and especially when he was seriously ill at the end, she was right there at his side every day and helping him every way. Every time I visited Robbie, he could, at his home, when he was actually just about to leave us, he couldn't have been more positive and more spirited, and his eyes were twinkling. He had this, I had this at his house, that you've seen, the big painting there, and it was right there, and he was looking at it from his bed all the time. But one of the reasons for his great spirit during these difficult years was his wife, Dot, and we will never forget her for that. He was greatly loved and will be greatly missed. I'm not sure we'll ever have another Robbie Reisner. And when Robbie arrived at the pearly gates of heaven, there's no question in my mind that he was warmly greeted by the Marines. Of course, they claim they guard the golden pearly gates. So all I can say is God bless you, Robbie. May you rest in peace. And finally, God be with you till we meet again. And to all of you here tonight who've served in the armed forces, and your wives and your children, your families, I want to thank you for all you've done for our country. And we wouldn't have our country today if it weren't for you. And it's just, you are the finest citizens we could possibly have. Thank you so much, and God bless you.